I'm Marty Sample. My wife Cheryl is Marcia's cousin. Oops. And want to welcome you all here. I want to start with a reminder that we all are aware of the COVID problem. And so I can see that most all of you are very aware of wearing masks. One thing we've come up with recently in a greeting is just to give a hug symbol and know that that's a handshake or a hug without physical contact. If you want a mask, there are some out in the front. To begin this remembrance of a wonderful lady, I'm going to share her obituary. There have been two versions out on Facebook, I know, and many of you probably already read this, so it's a quick history. On Monday, June 1st, 2020, Marcia Jean Smith of Cave Creek, Arizona, passed away peacefully at the age of 71. Marcia was born on December 23rd, 1948 in Oshkosh, Nebraska, the second of three children to Al Bachman and Helen Bachman. She grew up in a ranching family in Oshkosh and later Grand Island, Nebraska. Marcia graduated from Grand Island High School in 1967. She received her bachelor's degree in special education from the University of Northern Colorado, that's in Greeley, in 1971. Her master's degree in deaf education from the same university in 1976, and her doctorate degree in education administration from Arizona State University in 1996. On August 11, 1973, she married fellow Nebraskan Gary Smith. And it's so easy to love these two. The couple lived in Nebraska for several years and moved to Arizona in 1985, where they remained until her passing. Marcia taught special education and deaf students during her early professional career in Nebraska. She developed a passion for her field at a very early age when she realized that her family could not effectively communicate with her Aunt Evelyn and Uncle Harold, who were both deaf. Upon moving to Arizona, Marcia worked as both an administrator and special education director for several school districts in the Phoenix area, and she served as board president of the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind for 8 years. She also held leadership roles in numerous professional organizations serving special needs children. In 2012, she retired as the assistant superintendent of Glendale Elementary Schools. Marcia was also a published author. Marcia was loved and adored by so many and made lasting impressions throughout her life. An example of her impact on others is perhaps best described in a message from her friend, Sue Collins, used here with Sue's permission. And I quote, "Yesterday, I lost one of my dearest friends, Marcia Smith. She left quietly and quickly, which was very Marcia. She was quiet, thoughtful, and deliberate, but she was strongly opinionated about issues near and dear to her. She dedicated her life to kids, a teacher, administrator, not just to any kid, but to the kids with challenges, living challenged lives. She cared, she truly cared. She did so much for everyone she knew. She was Gary's soulmate for 50 years. Her neighbors loved her, her friends loved her workmates loved her, but she must have more work to do in a place we can't see. She has more to give, she has more to offer, she has more to resolve. She wants to do it alone, just Marcia doing more of what she left behind on this earth. She was an organ donor, so she'll live on in many ways. She must have felt it was time to get busy and go. Whatever she's decided to do will benefit the world. Just watch and see." Thank you, Sue. Survivors include, of course, her beloved husband, Gary, her brother, Max Bachman, and his wife, Melanie, in Grand Island, Nebraska, sister-in-law, Cheryl, husband, Larry Lambrecht of Aurora, Colorado, Aunt Neva Schmid of Chapel, and Nebraska, and many cousins, nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and great-nephews, and her English sheepdog, Dooley, all who loved her dearly. Marcia was preceded in death by her parents, her sister Jan Bachman Kroll, and 3 infant sons. In lieu of flowers, a scholarship fund for special and deaf education students is being created in Marcia's memory at the University of Northern Colorado through Desert Financial. Details will be provided on a Facebook as soon as Gary gets all the information he needs to put that out there. So you can find the information there. And with that, her nephew, Justin Lambrecht, created a video, and I think we'll share that now. I think. There it is.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Lambrecht, and I'm Marcia's nephew from Colorado. I would just like to take a moment to thank you all for joining today as we celebrate the life of my dear Aunt Marcia Smith. I can't be there in person, but I just wanted to talk for a few minutes about Marcia's impact on my life, the lives of my family, and so many others that she has met over the years. We all loved and adored her very much. June 1st, 2020 was a really bad day for all of us. What started out as a normal day in terms of everything just being the way that it usually was, ended with Marcia laying down for a nap and then deciding that it was her time to go and begin her next journey into the next life. The loss hits very hard. I have an emptiness in my heart that I know will never be filled completely. The family is devastated and our hearts are broken, as I'm sure yours are too. So, what do? I mean, right now, we grieve, and it's okay to grieve. We should. But we also celebrate. We celebrate Marcia's life. We celebrate her life well lived. And we rejoice that we all got to know her and love her as she knew and loved every one of you. Marcia was my aunt, but she was also my friend. And we had a very special and close relationship. But Marcia being Marcia, she had special and close relationships with all of my family and so many others. Words to describe Marcia, in my mind, are beautiful, smart, elegant, very snappy dresser, and probably most of all, caring. Marcia had more room in her little old heart than any of us could believe. I would call her the exact opposite of a me-first person. She always thought of others first. She was willing to give all she had to anyone that needed it. She had this incredible gift of being able to say the right thing at the right time. She had an even more incredible gift of being able to listen. Marcia and I shared a lot. We leaned on each other in tough times. We celebrated good times. We celebrated each other's accomplishments. Some very fond memories I have of her and Gary were every summer, my brother, sister, and I were allowed to spend a week with them in the big city. And that city was Lincoln, Nebraska. You may not think that city's very big, but compared to where we grew up, it was huge. And I have such fond memories of going there, ice cream every day, swimming pools, go-karts, miniature golf, movies. It was just such a time that we couldn't wait for, and we never really wanted to come home. As the years went by, Gary and Marcia had moved to Arizona in 1985, and then shortly thereafter, our family moved to Colorado. So the distance was further apart, but that never stopped Marcia from coming to events that our family had as kids, whether it be graduations, confirmations, sporting events, you name it. Her and Gary were always there. I just love that about them. They did not let distance drive us apart. Marcia was just cool. We all know that. I mean, I can't describe her in 7 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever time I have here, but she was just a cool person, and we just loved her so. She wasn't perfect. None of us are. Marcia never seemed to have a large enough trash can in her kitchen, and I'm for years and years, it was an ongoing friendly battle between her and I about getting a proper sized trash can. I'm happy to report that that has been accomplished as they redid their kitchen several years ago, and now they have 2 trash cans. So that battle was won by me. Others were not. She was not the greatest at cleaning as she cooked, but when we ate what she cooked, that all kind of went away too. So she got to win that one in the very end. Marcia didn't, or was not blessed with children, unfortunately, but I can tell you that she poured all of her love and her whole heart into myself, my brothers and sister, and also all of her nieces and nephews. So she certainly made up for that. Marcia, we know that you're here with us today, and if I know you, I know you're probably wondering what's all the fuss about. I just would like to tell you that it's about you. You profoundly touched everyone here today and so many others. I miss you. I can't wait to see you in heaven. But you have work to do, and I have work to do, and we both need to get busy. For us here on the big blue planet, our time is fleeting. For you, it's just starting. And the coolest thing about that is that it never ends. On behalf of my mom, Cheryl, my father, Larry, my sister, Tiffany, my brothers, Brandon and Tim, my brother-in-law, Jeff, and all the nieces and nephews, Jackson, Keaton, Gabe, Olivia, McKenna, and Sophie, I just want to thank all of you today for being here, celebrating Marcia, and loving her back as much as she loved you. By the way, the background music you hear is being played right now, right beside me, by my nephew Gabe. And I can guarantee you that Marcia is just digging this. I have a final challenge for everybody, and it's be like Marcia. And what I mean by that is care for others, have empathy for others, help others when they need help, and most importantly, listen to others. Live, love, and laugh, because we all know that Marcia loved all 3 of those things. If you can, call a friend, a relative, maybe somebody you haven't seen in a while, and just tell them that you love them and that you care about them. You have time to do this. God bless you, Marcia, and Godspeed on your journey. And I'd also like to wish God's blessings on all of you here today and all of Marcia's family and friends. Stay strong. Keep Marcia in your heart forever. Thank you all for allowing me this time.
And following that, Gary has a few comments he wants to make, and so we'll let him have a shot.
Sue made me a mask. As soon as the COVID hit, what did you make, 300, 400 masks for hospitals? See, I need Marcia here. I don't even have my jacket unbuttoned. I hadn't seen Justin's thing. My sister sent it to me last night. And I had a frantic call at 6:30 this morning saying, don't open that video. Don't look at it before you get to the mortuary. And I said, well, I haven't had time, so I didn't. So, but here we are. I'd like to talk a little bit about who Marcia was. All of you knew her for different reasons in different times of her life. I put a Facebook post out, you may remember, may have seen it, I should say. And when we were looking at these photos that we're showing earlier, we identified what was happening by Marcia's hairdo because it was changing. We couldn't do it by her clothes because she would wear them maybe once or twice, and the closet is full right now. and she did it all. When she got a new dress, she got a new bra, she got a new panties, she got new shoes, she got a new purse, she got new jewelry, she got it all, you know, and she looked good. Barbara Soretta back there is the most elegant lady in our neighborhood, but Marcia was one of the best dressed. I used to go to Barbara a couple of times. I asked her, where'd you get your clothes? You know, Marcia looked like you. And really, she looked like herself, and that was what was important. So just let me tell you a few things about Marcia. First, how we met. I met Marcia in 1971. I had just gotten out of the Army. I'd done a tour in Vietnam, and I was back in my hometown of Hastings, Nebraska, to go to college, finish college. And Marcia was in Hastings. She was in her first year of teaching. She'd gone to school in Colorado, and she had returned to Nebraska to be close to her parents and to acknowledge their sacrifice by sending her to college for 4 years. She didn't have to work. Everything was paid for. So she wanted to honor them, and so she came back and got a job in Hastings, which is 25 miles from her hometown of Grand Island. She and her roommate that she met at the school she was teaching at decided to get an apartment together. And I was living with 3 other guys. That was back in the day when if you didn't have enough money, you just got more roommates. And so some of you may remember those times. Anyway, she and Jody, her roommate, had a party. They had a housewarming party. And everybody knew everybody. I knew some of the people, and Marcia knew even fewer than I did. Long story short, we were the leftovers. We always referred to ourselves as the leftovers. And we spent time talking that night. I asked her out for the following weekend. It's been almost 50 years, and there was never a break in the whole time. We went together for a while. We got engaged. We got married in 1973. So, in a sense, here comes a bad joke, John Freeman. In a sense, the leftovers became the main menu for the next 50 years, okay? I worked hard on that one. Okay. A couple of stories about Marcia. When we were dating, one night, and don't take this wrong, but I took her to her apartment, and we were sitting in the car, and we were talking. Truthfully, we were talking. And I don't know what I said, but all of a sudden she bailed. She got out of the car, and she went into her apartment. And being the stubborn type, I decided I need to deal with this right now. So I went up to knock on the door. I knocked on the door. The door swung open. She'd gone in her apartment and left it open for me to come on in. So I knew I was done for. You know, I knew this was it. You know, I knew what her intentions were at that point. I was just telling some of her friends, there's three ladies in a row there. That Marcia's best friend, Barb, surprised me this morning. Walked in the front door a little while ago, and I'm so pleased you're here. And I was telling them, one time, whenever we go to San Diego, which was 2 or 3 times a year minimum, we would always go to Point Loma. And one time driving through the cemetery there, we pulled over and to watch the submarine. There was a submarine coming in, and we pulled over. Would you get my water for me, please? Yeah. We pulled over to watch the sub come into the sub pen, and Marcia was looking around, and she said, "Boy, isn't it nice here?" "Thank you." And I said, "Yes, I'll just keep it here." And I said, "Yeah." And then she said, "Would you like to be buried here?" I said, "That wouldn't be bad." And then she said, "Are you eligible?" I said, "Well, I'm a veteran, and I think so, unless this is strictly a Navy cemetery, but I don't know." And so we kind of left it at that. And a few years later, sorry, my mouth is dry. A few years later, we were back, and they had expanded the columbariums for the cremains. And she said, "You know, we decided we want to be cremated. Would you like to be here then in the wall?" And I said, "Sure, that's fine. That sounds great." And so she said, "Okay, then that's fine." And then she said, "But I want to be on the harbor side." And I said, "Why the harbor side? Why not the ocean side?" She said, "Well, I want to be able to watch the ships come and go." That's Marcia. Those of you who knew her knew that she was serious about that. Right, Barb? Yeah. Another story. Years ago, Marcia bought a car and she financed it at what was then Desert Schools Credit Union. Over time, she paid the car off, and then when we went to Europe last fall, and before we went, she said, I think we should go to Desert Financial and get you on the account. And I said, what account? She said, well, the account I have there. And I said, what account is that? And she said, well, for that car I bought. And I said, well, why do we have an account? And she said, well, I didn't know the Bank of America was still transferring the money to Desert Schools for the car payment, so it's just there. I said, well, how much money is there? She said, $20,000. And I went, oh, well, that's cool. Yeah, I'll go sign right now. Let's get this. Marty mentioned the scholarship. That money's going to be used as seed money for the scholarship. I asked her one time when we were younger, I said, what do you expect of me? What do you want me? What do you want me to provide you? And her quote was, gold, diamonds, and fast cars. We did the job on the fast cars, and she has the speeding tickets, as many of you may know. We take turns. Which one of us has to go to traffic school every year? We did take turns. So Marcia was very athletic. You may not know that. She was a good golfer, and she was a good skier. That's why I don't golf and I don't ski, because I didn't like her beating me all the time. She was so much smaller than I am. The one time we were getting off a ski lift, and I just kind of squashed her when I pushed off. And she was almost ready to go back down, but she jumped off at the last second. A few years ago, she decided she wanted to learn how to catch a baseball and how to catch a football. So we went out in our yard, got the football, got the baseball. She did pretty good with the baseball. She was real good with the gloves. She once I taught her to put it in front of her face, on some of the line drives. But she did well on that, but football wasn't quite so good. And after the first day, she just said, I hate this. I said, why? And she held up her hand. She'd broken 2 nails. And her nails were important to her. Her nails were always perfect. And so I said, well, I'm sorry, and I guess this is over. She said, no, let's go to the sporting goods store. I want receiver's gloves. So that's how she solved that problem. Okay. Marcia had her doctorate, as Marty noted. Her hood is out there in the lobby. I was kind of panicking. I couldn't find where it was. It was buried amongst all of her clothes. She had a lot of clothes. But I found it last night, and I was glad I was able to bring it. Where's Mary Radcliffe? She's here someplace. There she is over there. You were in her cohort, weren't you? Marcia and Mary and a bunch of other professional educators had a cohort at ASU that they went through all their classes together and stuff. They spent a lot of Saturdays at our house studying. They had a little study group. And when I thought it was time for them to go, I'd go out and get in my leaf blower and I'd walk back and forth in front of the window where they were sitting by, just to kind of get them to say, hey, I need something to eat. No, but anyway, Marcia blew through that. She did it in 3.5 years, start to finish. She did her dissertation. She researched it. She wrote it. She defended it, and then she had her doctorate in about 3.5 years, which was amazing. A side note to that is that she worked full-time during that period, and I don't mean to be crass, but she went through menopause at that period too. So we had some exciting nights at our house at times. But anyway, Marcia's doctor called me the morning after she died and told me that he had put on the death certificate that she died of a heart attack. She was compromised in a lot of ways. People may not know her whole health history. But the basic thing was she had something called factor V Leiden's hypercoagulation disorder, which meant that her blood clotted too much, so she had to be on blood thinners. And that affected her health for the rest of her life. Marty mentioned she had 5 pregnancies. We had 5 pregnancies. It was 2 miscarriages and 3 stillbirths. This disorder caused that, but we didn't know it because that was in the late 70s and the early 80s, and the disorder wasn't defined until the early 90s. Marcia was diagnosed in 2001. She'd gone to the hospital because our dog at that time, Ozzy, was old and sick, was laying on the floor in front of our front door, and she tried to open the door, and he didn't like it, and he turned and snapped her in the hand, and he nipped her. And she was she thought getting blood poisoning, so she called her doctor, and the doctor said, go to the hospital. Is anything else wrong? And she said, well, my knee hurts, or my leg hurts, and it's hot behind my knee. And the doctor said, that sounds like a blood clot. Get in there. Well, she had a blood clot, or clots, I should say, from her hip to her ankle. Again, caused by factor V Leidens. Oh, I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. How embarrassing is this? And spam. It's a spam call, of course. Okay. So that we didn't know what was happening with the babies, and we finally found out in 2001. They put her on blood thinners, and she was there for the rest of her life. But in the course of that, she lost her gallbladder. She had her thyroid ablated, and she was on medication for that. She had major hemorrhage in 2008. She lost the functioning of her adrenal glands and had to take medication for that. And I'm missing something. What am I leaving out? Anyway, she had a complicated medical history, and so I always called her a chemistry problem. And she had to stay in balance all the time. And lately, she'd been out of balance, and I personally think that contributed to her passing. But I miss her a lot, and I'm sorry, so sorry that she's gone. But I'm so glad that she went the way she went and didn't suffer and wasn't in a lot of pain. Like I said about her health, it had a major impact on her health, but it didn't define her life. She moved on. Some of you may have come into Marcia's life during her, what I call her accident-prone years. And she had a bunch of them. There was a series, let's see. Most of it, what people don't know, Marcia had a lot of fractures, but what they don't know is the medication she took was sucking the calcium out of her body, so she had to take supplements, and it was always a problem trying to keep her balanced, trying to keep enough calcium going in to compensate for the calcium that she was losing. Let's see. Oh, I'm glad Barb is here from Lincoln. The first one. I went back to Nebraska for a high school reunion. Marcia decided to stay in Lincoln with Barbie, and I was going to pick her up on Sunday. We were going to catch our flight home. I got back to Barb's house. Marcia was laying on the sofa in the family room. There was a series of chairs, dining room chairs, strategically placed between where Marcia was laying and Barb's bathroom. And I found out that the night before, Barbie and Marcia, and I don't know who else was with you, went out for dinner. And Marcia decided to get an extra round of drinks. She slipped at the bar, fell down and fractured her kneecap. So they say she wasn't drinking at the time and that she wasn't drunk. I don't know. And then Barb and I, there's a little anecdote that I wasn't going to tell, but I just thought of it. Barb and I and Barb's sister Diane and Marcia went to get something to eat before we left, and Marcia was having trouble walking. So I carried her like a sack of potatoes. I had her over my shoulder with her head in the back. Carried her in, put her in a chair. We we're in this restaurant. Nobody paid any attention to us. I mean, it was really weird, you know. So then when we're going out, I put a big, heavy door, big door. And I pushed the door open. I was walking out, and Barbara, her sister, when one of the two said something to me, and I swung like this, and I heard this thunk, and everybody's doing what you're doing. Barb and her sister were dying. They have a wicked sense of humor, and they were dying to laugh, but they knew they had to be nice, you know, and make sure that Marcia was okay. And Marcia just going like, "What did you do that for?" You know, So anyhow, I didn't mean to tell that, but that's too good not to. The second fracture that I remember, she fractured her left tibia, and if you can believe this, she slipped on ice at the Glendale Elementary administration building. This is Arizona. This is Phoenix. Marcia found the only piece of ice in the town to slip on and fracture her leg. Okay. Let's see. Oh, She fractured her right tibia. This is a good one. She fractured her right tibia because she got caught in the covers while she was trying to dust the headboard on her bed, on a waterbed. And she got caught in the covers and twisted and fractured her right leg. She was a master. I graduated. It's kind of like that. I retired New Year's Eve on 2011. And Marcia had actually retired the year before, but they had this program, I can't remember what it's called, where you can go back to work for a while as a teacher or anything in school districts and combine retirement and salary. But anyway, she was still working, but it was in March. I don't know what holiday it was, but she decided to go out for a bicycle ride. She rode her bike all the time. She had to ride her bike because she'd had her left knee replaced by this time. She went for a bike ride, and she was just down the street from our house, and she hit a pile of debris on the side of the road, just some stickers and things like that. And she fell off her bike. As near as we can figure, she used her front brake instead of her rear brake, so she went over, and she was clipped in. She had clip shoes on. She wasn't supposed to wear clip shoes. The doctor specifically said, do not wear your clip shoes on your bike pedals anymore. You have to have your feet free because of your appliance or your whatchamacallit in your knee. So of course she wore her clip shoes. On that one, she fractured her left wrist. She had a plate and 9 screws. She fractured her hip, her pelvis, her scrotum. She had a concussion. She had cactus things sticking out of her cheeks when I saw her. And then they took her to the hospital in an ambulance. They took her to Mayo because of the concussion. She broke her helmet when she hit, as a matter of fact. And so they observed her at Mayo, and they were going to cut her bike shorts off. And she said, no, these are expensive bike shorts. I don't care how much it hurts. Don't ruin my bike shorts. So they didn't. And a nurse came in and got very, very protective of Marcia and told her, don't you touch those shorts, and if you need to take those off of her, you come and get me and I'll help. But don't you use any scissors. Okay. And then the last one was one night we were having dinner. We'd been in Denver to a great nephew's graduation. We got home and we sat down and had some pasta, and Marcia, it was before we remodeled our kitchen. We had a peninsula that came out across from where our kitchen table is. And she stood up too fast, and you know how you do, you get lightheaded. It's called syncope. I found this out from the doctors. Anyway, she started wobbling. I said, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I just got to get my balance. And before I could turn in my chair to get up to help her, she just did a face plant. She passed out and just went flat. Fractured her jaw, broke 10 teeth, cut her chin, another 9 stitches. So after she got out of the hospital from that, then she went and had to have surgery on her wrist and get the plate and the screws in. She had to go see the dentist, and she had to have all new crowns. He said, well, you broke this, you broke that. And she said, I just need to know one thing. And he said, what's that? She said, do I still have my wisdom teeth? He said, yeah, you didn't break any of your wisdom teeth. She said, okay, fine, just fix the others. She was very proud of the fact that her mouth was big enough to hold her wisdom teeth her whole adult life. So, okay. When we retired and after we turned 50, and if anybody in here is younger than 50, I highly recommend starting your travel young and often. But after we turned 50, we traveled a lot, domestically and in Europe particularly. One story that sticks out was last fall, in September 15th to October 15th, we went to Europe. We were in Vienna, and we each had a big suitcase and a little suitcase, and then a carry-on, or a backpack, I should say. But I was rolling the 2 big suitcases, and she had the 2 little ones. And I couldn't find an elevator, so I got her on an escalator. And as luck would have it, one of the suitcases decided it wanted to be on the step lower than the one I had it on. And I lost control of it, and I hollered out, and to the people down below me, there was about 12 steps. And of course, they speak German. and I couldn't remember the word for help or look out. But anyway, my suitcase rolled down. This man heard me. He turned, he caught my suitcase, and then he came up a couple steps to give it to me. I reached for it, and I went ass over tea kettle. I just went boom. And I tried to get up. I couldn't get my arm above the little rail on the side, the little handrail thing. I had my elbow up under it, and it was getting sliced open. There was a little thing there. I didn't know it. And so I'm riding down the escalator. I finally decided I might as well make the best out of a bad situation. So I just laid down flat. And I just figured the escalator would take me off one step at a time. Well, I'm a little bit heavier than what the escalator load was, I guess, because it just parked me on one space and the stairs just kept going under me. And I turned and I looked at Marcia and Kirk, her cousin here, and I were talking about this earlier. There's a look that some of the Walkmans have, and I got the look. It was the teacher look. It was the what in the world are you doing look. It was, you look like you might be hurt. You know, maybe I should be serious about this. But mostly it was trying to stifle a laugh. And when they stopped the escalator, all these people had to stop. They had to come and lift me up and get my suitcases and all that stuff. And then the medics came, they said, "You okay?" And I said, "I'm fine, I don't need anything." And so we walked away, and as we're walking, Marcia said, "You're bleeding." And I said, "Where?" And she said, "Your left elbow." And I looked, and I had a cut from here to here. I had puncture wounds here. I had a bunch of other cuts here. I'm bleeding all over the place. So I'm walking like this, and I finally said to Marcia, "We need to stop. We need to get the first aid kit out of the bag." And she looked. It wasn't in the bag. She didn't know where it was. And so I said, "I need something." And she said, "Well, just stay there. I'll get you something." So she went into the nearby candy store and got me some candy wrappers and came out and put it on my cut. You know, and in Marcia land, that was just a perfectly logical solution. But I'm going, you know, okay, that's fine, but I can't walk around like this and full of suitcases. I really need a Band-Aid, you know. And she said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "There's a drugstore. Let's go over there." So I'm standing in the entryway to the drugstore, bleeding all over the place. So I finally bought a couple of umbrellas just to, you know, make the people feel better about having me stand there bleeding on their place. I could see Marcia back in the back. She's just looking and looking and looking. Well, she came back with little Band-Aids. So I had about 12 Band-Aids on my elbow. And all I wanted was a gauze pad with some adhesive tape. But, you know, she said, "Well, it'll work. Don't worry, it'll work. I bought a whole bunch of them. So when they get filled, we'll fix them." So that was our travels. I'm almost done here. She had a fitness routine that was unparalleled. People in our neighborhood, all knew about Marcia in the mornings. She'd get up, take the dog for a walk. It just so happens that the circuit around our neighborhood is a mile. And so she'd go walk that mile to warm up with Ozzy and then Bebo and now Dooley. And then she would come back. She had one of those big rubber balls, those fitness balls. She'd sit on that ball. Jim and I discovered this one day when we were working on our bathroom, and we went out to get something, and Jim was just astonished, and I was too. I hadn't seen how she, anyway, she'd sit on the ball, put her feet up on the frame of the garage door, and she'd do 400 or 500 crunches, balanced on that ball, every morning without fail. Then she'd get on her recumbent bike and ride that for a half hour. Sometimes she's got a big weight machine out there. Anybody want a weight machine? I got one. She's got a big one out there that she would lift weights and stuff some mornings. And that was Marcia. That was her fitness routine. But a lot of people, I don't know how many of you read the tribute to Marcia by Lori Klasky, our next door neighbor. And she commented about Marcia in her workouts every morning. So to wrap up, I just want to tell you all how pleased I am to see you here, how proud I am and was of Marcia her whole life, how much I miss her, how much family and friends and co-workers and everybody else meant to her. And she was sincere. She was a great listener, and she was sincere. She had neighbors that were friends. She had work people that were friends. She had dog walkers that were friends. The morning after Marcia died, I was out about 7 o'clock, I think, and a lady, I'd been walking Dooley when we were heading back into the house, the lady said, "Good morning," and I said, "Good morning," and she said, "I just want you to know that anytime you want me to walk Dooley, I'll be glad to do it," and I offer my condolences. I finally found out that she was a neighbor lady. I just didn't know her. She got a big red. She's the hound dog. What do they call them? The sniffer dogs, you know. But anyway, but that's the kind of person Marcia was. She had those relationships with people I didn't even know. Somebody told me her name was Julie. Did that ring a bell with any of the neighbors? Huh? Julie Lockett. Okay. So. And finally, this would have been the 30th consecutive year that we did our annual holiday party. I can't cook like Marcia. I can't do the things Marcia. For those of you who came and didn't know, all the food that was there, Marcia made. And she usually made it the day before, sometimes the day of the party. We entertained upwards of 75 people the first Saturday of every year, and I really regret I just can't do it because I don't know how. So somebody else can take up the mantle in the neighborhood. I thank you for your time and your attention. And Lynn, did you want to say something? Sue? Okay, we'll do Sue then. Sue is our dear friend. She's the one who did the obituary. She's the one who made our masks. She and her husband, Jim, here are the ones that allowed Marcia and I to help them remodel our house. Sue told me the other day when she cleaned up the guest room, I guess. And I said, "I think I need to repaint it." And she said, "Oh, good. 11 years ago, I noticed that paint, and it's been on my mind ever since." So whenever Sue and Jim run out of project at their house, she comes over and just subtly mentions, "You know, it'd look a lot better if you did this, you did that." That's why our bathrooms have been redone, our kitchen's been redone, our family room's been redone. And they're just great friends and great people. Sue Collins.